Good.
It is the Two Bald Guys podcast. How are you doing, James, Adam?
Much better than I deserve, Jim Chapman. That's for sure.
Yes, yes. Me as well. A lot going on in the world this past week. Of course, we're going to talk about all of that. We're going to talk about some local stuff, too, today. So, but first, I want to talk about this GameStop thing.
Okay.
So, for those of you that may be unaware, you don't pay attention to stocks or whatever, there's a big shakeup going on right now in the Wall Street world with GameStop stock. And basically what happened was they have hedge fund companies. And what these companies do is they basically speculate on the market. And they call this shorting the stock market.
Right.
It's something that hinges on illegality,
Sure.
to say the least. But
and morale. Well, I don't know about morality.
well, probably
Ethically, yeah. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, you are betting on someone else's failure.
Exactly. So what happened was these hedge fund companies got together and they were speculating that GameStop would go out of business. Mm-hmm. So the way that they do this when they call it shorting the market, shorting the stock. So what they do is they speculate on this and they go to a broker and they say, look, we want to borrow GameStop stock. And what they do is when it goes down, they actually buy it at the low price. When you borrow it, it's like pennies on the dollar. Right. You don't actually own it.
Right.
Well, some smart guys on Reddit figured out that they were going to do this. So they wanted to stick it to them, right? Because this is how these guys become billionaires and stuff like that. And so they're like, we're going to stick it to them. So a bunch of these well-off Reddit guys got together and they said, we're going to pool all our money. We're going to wait till they borrow the stock. And then we're going to buy a ton of it and shoot it up.
Increase the value of the GameStop shares.
Tremendously, hugely. So what happened was it shot like, I think it was like $800 something a share. So these hedge funds lost billions with a B because they borrowed it. But when you borrow it, you're committing to buy it. You can't get out of it.
That's
so
right.
They basically had to buy that stock at the high price.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. So
here's the most interesting part about this situation. So Miller and his class, they're doing a mock stock market. There's this website that's used as an educational tool where you can go on there as a classroom, as a group, whatever, and you're given $10,000 to invest as you wish. So literally, he and I
literally $10,000.
Well, it's monopoly money,
right?
So he and I were, we're a little bit late to the party, of course, because that's just how we roll. So the rest of his class has been doing this for a week or so. We started our investments Monday, and we're watching tutorial videos that are offered through the website, and learning just how this goes, that goes, and then we learned about shorting. Okay. What shorting means, how that is applied in the stock market. I thought that's very interesting. And I think he even made the comment, like, what would happen if the stock that you were shorting ended up rising? So we watched a video on how the margin works and how you have to, even though you're not buying the stock, whom you're borrowing the stock from, in essence, to put on the market, you have to have X amount of money that goes up in that. So we learned all about this Monday, and then Tuesday, that's when it really started getting out, people talking about this. Well, a buddy of his that's in the classroom who is oblivious obviously to any of this going on, put all his money in GameStop because he just thought it'd be cool. I like playing video games. This dude is a freaking millionaire,
yes.
On this website now because of dumb luck going and buying this stock at like $4 a pop. And what is it, like 400 and something now?
It's dropped. Yeah, it was almost 800, I think, at one point. But it's dropped down. It's around 4 something, which is still, I don't know what it was when it started, but I think it was like $12 a share or something like that. So
it's great how the
I'll
timing,
take that return.
Yeah, the timing of this is just hilarious though, because I would be oblivious to really what is even going on, but the fact of the matter is we just learned about this Monday, and that's when it really started hitting the media, was Monday evening, Tuesday, and we saw how that all transpired. And it's kind of funny because it wasn't just these millionaires on Reddit. It's a bunch of millennials and a bunch of gamers that got in on this too.
Oh, yeah.
Just proving that, you can't sell them too short. We've talked before about,
That's right.
that whole dynamic as far as the future, or, what we're handing the world onto, but that just goes to show you they're not quite as inept or oblivious to what's going on as we sometimes think that they are.
Well, especially Wall Street thinks that they are, and here's the problem. Wall Street is now pissed because, they're the only ones allowed to do this. Nobody else is allowed to manipulate the stock market, only Wall Street. So Wall Street now is panicking because they don't know how to stop it. You can't really stop that.
Yeah.
If they figure out what you're going to short, they can do this 100 times over.
Yeah.
And so they're in a panic right now. Everybody loves it that they kind of stuck it to them and look what we did and all that sort of stuff. But the problem is now with public companies, you don't want this to become a habit,
right?
To where you don't, it's almost like a game these days versus, it used to be you bought stock in a company because you believed in it. You thought it was maybe a great concept or a solid company that turned in solid earnings, like a Sears or something like that back in the day. Now it's become more of almost fake value. A lot of companies, a lot of public companies, what they'll do is they will expand to make their stockholders think they're having growth. So they'll open a store that they know, for example, is not going to be profitable. Sure. And I'm not singling anybody out, but they'll open up a store that they know there's no way we're going to make money. But what we're going to do is we're going to make money on the back end because our stock will rise, because our stockholders view another store as growth.
Yeah. What do they call it? Inorganic growth? Whenever it's really just perception that is causing something to grow and it's not an actual legitimate growth of a company?
Yes, that's what they call that. And there's a company in particular that I'm familiar with that they will open up stores 2 miles from each other. They'll have 14 stores in one area, literally, that's about 10 miles in square distance. Mm. And they do that to manipulate growth and jump their stock up. Really, there's no way they could be profitable in that area with that many stores. So anyway, moving on. Yeah. So the interesting thing though, and really, it's funny. I have my wife has some mutual funds that she invests in with her work at Women's Hospital. And I'm curious if there was any GameStop stock in those funds because, these funds will have 400 stocks in them. Sure. Maybe it was one. I haven't looked yet. I had plans last week to kind of look. I was like, I wonder if. So I'll have to look this week and see. Maybe she had 10 shares of it or something.
You never know. If I had to guess, I'd probably say no because the writing's been on the wall for GameStop to be a bankrupt company for quite some time now, which I really can't even fathom because
they're owned by Blockbuster, by the same conglomerate that owns Blockbuster Video.
Really?
Interestingly enough. So somebody was telling me a few days ago, buy Blockbuster Video stock. I'm like, that's not good advice.
Yeah, I don't see a resurgence of Blockbuster.
I don't either. But I think that was the thing with GameStop too that really killed it was you can stream gaming now. So you don't have to go buy the game. You can download it on your PlayStation, for example, and it's there.
Sure.
Everything's streaming now.
The last couple of things that Miles has purchased from GameStop, it was like you had the disc so you could go home and download it and stream it. I'm like, wait, what like it just seems to me that logically they're going to work out that middleman at some given point in time. They already are, but it's going to be where just this wave comes through and then washes them out to sea.
Totally agree. So, but for now, if you were a GameStop employee and maybe you were in upper management and you had a ton of that stock, boy, you're happy right now. And I say sell, sell it quick. Well, that's probably going to.
We were discussing that
out here.
We were discussing that Friday, and it's inevitable. The law of gravity in investing is going to come to fruition, that what goes up is going to come down. So at what point do we sell it? Because both of us did obviously invest a little bit in there, because it even at the point that we invested, it still rose above from that. So at some point we're going to, have to sell our play stocks.
Yeah.
And I guess that'd probably be either tomorrow or Tuesday, because I don't see it staying up for very long.
I think that's a great thing that y'all are doing. It's good for kids to learn that side of business and that side of the world. And, it's important, and you can make some money. I've always been someone that if I'm going to buy a stock and just have fun with it, try to turn a few bucks, I preset when I want to sell that. Okay. Sure. So if this thing doubles, or if this thing goes up $5 a share, I'm selling it. I don't care what it is. And that way, I'm happy with what the profit that I made off of that. The problem is people try to time it, man. They see it go up $5 and then they're like, ooh, it's going to go up 10 and yeah, it might. I mean, maybe you had Amazon stock when it was $10 a share and sold it at 20 and now you're kicking yourself, but you doubled your money.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't complain.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the hindsight situation where you think, oh man, I just should have held on to that. Or, the corollary to that is also very true, where I should have gotten out when I could.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, that's why I like mutual funds. You ain't got to look at it.
Sure.
There's so many in there. You can have 50 go up and 50 go down, and you're right back where you were when you started. So
sure.
Another interesting thing, this is more locally, we're going to talk about a few things. So you did a paintball deal this weekend.
Sure
tell us about your little paintball adventure.
Oh, it was a blast, man. We Miles had his 11th birthday Thursday, and to celebrate his birthday, we had a party at Guerrilla Warfare Paintball, which is located off of Arnold Road in Walker. Yeah. And we had a blast, man. We had 21, 22 people out there with us.
Wow.
So we had,
proud.
Oh yeah, we had Miles and, 9 of his buddies, and then parents and siblings were invited to participate as well, which about 4 or 5 of the parents did, about 3, 4 of the siblings, and then
and I'm sure you were one of the parents.
Oh, absolutely. Danielle played as well.
Really?
Cheryl and Stacy both played.
No.
Believe it or not, Cheryl dominated the first round. She won.
What?
We split teams and played like a traditional style, battle out there. And last man standing won. And the last man standing was not a man; it was a woman. It was the grandmother of the group.
How about that?
Won it. Yeah.
Cheryl Phipps.
It was, man, we had a blast. It was so much fun, and I was really anticipating not getting out of bed this morning, or at least it being quite a chore.
Yeah.
And it was, but I'm just tired. It's not, I'm not hurting or aching or, the paintballs, they definitely don't feel good, but 10, 15 seconds later, the sting is gone. It's not that big a deal. Just not running for quite some time. And I ran more yesterday and probably ran combined the past 5 years.
Yeah.
So that was, it definitely took its toll.
Was it muddy out there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. When I played there also in the past, and it was actually the first time I'd ever played paintball and had a blast. I remember slipping a lot, and you get out there, it was muddy and damp and all that sort of thing. But you're right. And I told you when we talked about it, I'm like, they sting now. When they hit you, they hit you in the right spot. It hurts.
They got some sting to them for sure. I got a couple of good side shots that did not feel good. I got a couple of head shots.
Oh yeah,
which really didn't hurt as bad. But the worst marks are the ones that are on my head. But
yeah,
and we had a great time, which is kind of ushering in of the play war, I guess you would say. We're planning on the first and third Sunday of each month going and playing airsoft, which is a very similar structure as far as games and whatnot goes. But Miles has really gotten into that. So, and he always has been. We were talking a little while ago about the different birthday parties he's had, and most of them were either Nerf parties or like yesterday with the paintball, and that's just what he's interested in. He likes playing war.
Yeah,
he has a good time doing it. So we've invested some money in a couple of high quality airsoft guns from a place called Gunfighter here in Walker. Really cool place. In fact, you need to spend some go and check them out. They're actually in the same complex, the same building as A-Bears.
Okay.
Cajun Meats on the other end.
Gotcha.
One of the owners, who is the owner operator, Stephen Harding, great guy, and just really great to talk to. Like every time I go there, I end up spending like an hour and a half just chatting with this guy. Really cool cat.
Yeah.
Really cool cat.
Awesome. Well, check them out if you're in the Walker, Louisiana area.
Absolutely.
So we also had some interesting Chamber of Commerce events occur Friday. They had their annual awards banquet.
I'm upset that I missed out on that, but I heard it was a good time.
It's packed house. Of course, everybody following our guidelines that we're supposed to follow.
Sure.
But it was a packed house. It was a great time. Big Mike did the keynote address.
How was that?
Great. I mean, you can't get any better than Big Mike and everything he's done with his bar and restaurant business. And he spoke for about 10, 15 minutes about, how valuable employees are to your business and why they do everything that they do for the community and how much he believes in that. And it was good, man.
I bet.
It's hard to beat Big Mike on just sitting down and listening and talking to someone who's a real dude.
That's local business personified right there. As long as I can remember, he has had, he's been an entrepreneurial spirit alive and well in Livingston Parish, which is great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just a great guy. So they announced some winners. I wanted to kind of recognize them since that was a big deal. Mm-hmm. And so the community impact winner was the Livingston Parish Council on Aging. Very, very much deserved award there. The new business of the year was, and I had the honor of actually announcing this.
Really?
Yeah. So I announced the new business of the year, which was Home Key Mortgage, Tiffany Seacard and Kyle Tallow.
Heck yeah.
Definitely well deserved. They're right here in Denham Springs, and really took a year. They opened and I would call it the COVID year, and they expanded and they hired more employees and they did everything opposite of what you would think would occur during a COVID year. So they've had some good success this first year as Home Key Mortgage in Denham Springs.
That's great. I love Tiff, and that, I tell you, couldn't be happened to a better person. Went to a better person, because she definitely deserved it.
100%. Small business of the year went to the Bankston Law Firm. They are, I think, in Albany, if I'm not mistaken. But if I'm If I am mistaken, I apologize. But Bankston Law Firm was Small Business of the Year. Large Business of the Year was First Guarantee Bank. Of course, Farrell Calhoun Paint was Large Business of the Year last year, so we had to give up our role, our crown, or whatever you want to call that. Sure. But First Guarantee Bank, glad to pass that baton on to those folks. The Chairman's Award was the entire Back to Work task force, and Todd Caruso spoke about this a little bit. So he was the chairman of the COVID year. Mm-hmm. I'm sure he loved that. That's a heck of a year to be chairman of the board for the Livingston Parish Chamber of Commerce, I'm going to tell you. But he spoke about that in detail about how when COVID hit, how him and April Wares were on the phone. He said, I was literally on the way to Arkansas somewhere, I believe is what he said. But he said she called me, and it was right when we found out, businesses had to close and all this sort of stuff. And he said, we talked like the whole way practically trying to come up with solutions for businesses and really help them. And so they actually put together a task force, and they called it the Back to Work Task Force. Mm-hmm. And these people just basically got together and they brainstormed ideas on how to keep business flowing in Livingston Parish. So he gave the chairman's award to that entire task force, which I thought was a great thing. And they were recognized at the actual meeting. Trey Sanders was sworn in as the chairman of the board. He took the gavel over from Todd Caruso. Mm-hmm. So he will be the chairman for this year. And the member of the year was Steve Bernard of Client Tech Services. I'm going to tell you what, you just got to know Steve Bernard to really get this guy. But he does everything for his community and is just a genuine person.
Oh, absolutely.
All the way around. I think the world of him, and nobody's more deserving than Steve to get Member of the Year award.
For sure.
And I thought it was funny because they took the picture, you're holding up your thing, and April had stuck it in front of Steve's face. And if you know Steve, you just got to know Steve. But it was a funny picture. And then he come up to me when I was because I had to announce the new business of the year. Mm-hmm. And he came up to me right before and he says, if you say anything about me, my feelings won't be hurt. And I'm like, that's so Steve to say that, but just a great guy and definitely deserving of that
for sure.
So the whole event was great. It was a good turnout, and it's amazing what just a very limited staff at the Livingston Parish Chamber can pull off when it comes to events. I mean, I'm sure there were things going on behind the scenes that maybe weren't perfect, but you couldn't tell.
Sure.
It was a great event. They had a lot of sponsors. People had centerpieces that they did, mm-hmm. And they would put on the table. And if you had a certain number, you won the centerpiece. I won one of them. It's pretty good.
Which one did you get?
A bunch of beer, man, from Gallagher Insurance. Interestingly enough, Ashlyn Erdy and her folks over there had a centerpiece, and I have won that, and it was full of a beat of beers, different flavors.
Okay,
so it was great. Yeah. It was great. I was like, this ain't gonna last long. So a great event had by all. Yeah, you need to make it next year. You'll have a great time.
I've not been. This is 2 years in a row that I haven't been, but I typically go every year, and just with things going on, it just wasn't in the cards last year and wasn't in the cards this year. But I'll definitely pencil that in because I missed so many of my favorite chamber events in 2020. Number one being the expo. That is hands down my favorite event as far as anything that the chamber
free swag.
Puts on. Well, I just love trade shows, honestly.
I do too.
And to be able to exhibit at one, but also be engaging with so many other businesses in there, because even while you're setting up, you're still moving around and checking out other people's booths and what's going on and everything. And I just love it. And I hate that it, obviously, just like every other trade show in existence, as took a hiatus for the year 2020, and it looks like that's going to be a good bit of that going into 2021 as well. But who knows? We'll just see what's going on.
Yeah, I feel the same way, and I love trade shows too. And it's even with podcasts. They used to do a lot of trade shows where all these podcasters would have booths, and you could go to the different booths, and it's like a networking event for podcasting. And I was looking real forward to attending one of those, and now they're all virtual. And I'm like, who wants to do a virtual trade show? Yeah, and I get it, but who wants to do that? At least they're trying to do something. But I'm not big on virtual anything, only because it's really hard to make a connection virtually.
Yeah, it's virtually hard to do.
It is yes, it is indeed. So. Great job to the Livingston Parish Chamber of Commerce. Now, moving a little bit more towards national news again, Ted Cruz wants to reintroduce term limits on congressional members.
Amen. Second that motion.
I was going to ask
All
you
those
how
in
you
favor
felt.
say aye.
So what he's wanting to do is if you're a senator, he wants you to have 2 6-year terms. And if you're a House member, he wants 3 2-year terms. So that would be your max. And then you've done your work. Now, his point is career politicians.
Yep, I'm sick of them.
I was going to ask you if it was a good or bad thing and get your thoughts on that. You're not for, I've heard fights for and against it. The people that are against term limits, their reasoning is, well, you could have someone. What if you have someone that is just let's say a rock star, someone that is just totally valuable? And I think a lot of Garrett Graves here personally, that will be a good example. At some point, you would lose a Garrett Graves whether you wanted to or not because of term limits. That is. So that's the sucky part of it,
sure,
for lack of a better term. But at the end of the day, I don't think politics really should be an entire career.
Well, let me tell you something. I had this conversation just, if not yesterday, maybe the day before. Garrett is one of the few politicians that I know of that I trust. Mm-hmm. I trust what he is saying. I trust what he is doing. Mm-hmm. I wholeheartedly do. And that would really stink that he would only be able to be there a finite amount of time. Mm-hmm. But in this situation, I'm afraid the baby needs to go out with the bathwater, because what's going on in this country, my opinion, just me,
sure,
bald guy number 2 over here, is because of career politicians. There's far too many people who go into office and leave much wealthier than they do. And when they leave is 20, 30 years later. That's ridiculous to me. And a lot of them you can look at and see where they have no accomplishments whatsoever, nothing to really hang their hat on, nothing that they necessarily did or were key components in making this or that happen or whatever. They were just kind of there, and somehow they're millionaires.
Yeah.
But it's public speaking and book writing,
Yeah. No, and you're absolutely correct. And there's politicians, I think of, for example, locally, Garrett Graves instituted the ROTC program at Denham Springs High School, which I think was a needed thing, a great thing.
Absolutely.
And not as easy as one would think to get instituted. It's not as easy as saying, hey, let's put a ROTC program here and it gets done. You would think it would be that easy. It's not. It's a lot of red tape. It's extremely hard. He got it done, and it was a great thing for the community and for the kids of the community. And so that's kind of one of his legacies that I think of right off the bat. Rogers Pope with the the technology center right down the road here.
Right.
That was his kind of baby, and he got that. If you go in there, there's a big picture of him in there. Because he got that instituted. That's a great legacy to have. I think that was a building that was needed in this
absolutely
in this community.
Great facility too.
Yeah. I like it when politicians have something to point at and say, I accomplished this.
Sure.
And I got this done. And this is, of course, from the local level, but you bring up a good point, even from the national level. There's some that go 40 years and they don't really have that.
No,
They don't really have anything they can
That's
point
right.
to and say, you know, here's what I did while I was in office. And you know what? The length of time of this, 2 6-year terms for senators, so that's 12 years. I think that's plenty.
plenty. Absolutely. Yeah, one might argue their relevance to anything would be over after 2 6 years. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, come on, dude. You really don't, especially as rapidly as everything is changing these days anyway. It needs to have some fresh blood up there as far as I'm concerned. But that's just, again, my humble opinion. And should us peons be able to vote on it, you know which way I'm voting.
Right. And here's my thought also on that. And I agree with you. I think it sucks that you get those rock stars in there every now and then, and basically you would have no choice but to lose them at some point. But here's the problem with career politicians. They get a name behind them that it's almost impossible to beat them. When your name is recognizable and somebody goes in the booth that doesn't pay attention to politics, they vote for who they know. They don't know if they're good, bad, or sideways. They just, this guy won last time. Boom, I'm going to vote for him this time. And once you get that name and it becomes so synonymous with who you are, you almost win elections just based off of the fact that people recognize your name.
Sure.
They may not know anything about your politics.
They may not know anything.
How many politicians have won that have had corruption behind them? And yet they still win the next election, and it totally and solely because of their name recognition.
Yeah.
I think quite a few.
Yeah.
It would stop that. I mean, it would, we have rising stars that may never have a chance because of name recognition and things like that. So if they're limited, and that's that. In a case of like a Garrett Graves, he's a House member, so maybe he could jump over and do a Senate term after that or whatever, and go from introducing the bills to actually passing the bills.
Sure.
And things like that. So it's not like they get out of politics completely. I mean,
Right.
Maybe he'll run for governor or something. Who knows? But
it seems to me like if that person is indeed, like you say, a rock star, that's not the culmination. That's not the pinnacle of, a life in politics as senator or representative. There's all different ways that you can go in that direction. It just doesn't. It seems to me like that's a good idea.
Yeah, I agree. So there's two bald guys you got that agree with Ted Cruz's reintroducing term limits. Indeed. Now, also on the side of politics here is of course, the 1.9 million trillion
with a T.
Yeah. Stimulus. Okay. So they're arguing this right now and for and against and all that sort of thing. But the Democrats are basically saying, originally the incumbent president here, that Biden has said that he's trying to work with Republicans, and he has been kind of talking to Republicans about getting this bill passed. The Republicans, the majority, do not think that a lot of things that are in this bill should be. They're not considered emergencies, and so they're basically saying we're not going to agree with that.
Sure.
Well, the Democrats are basically saying whether you agree with it or not, we're going to pass it. They have something called reconciliation. So what reconciliation is when you have a majority in a Senate. Okay, for example, you get up to 3 times a year that you can use what's called reconciliation, and it basically stops the filibuster. So for those of you that may not know what the filibuster is, when a bill's introduced, and let's say it's a Democratic bill, and let's say the Republicans don't want that bill to pass, they'll have someone go up there and they will filibuster that bill. They will just talk and talk and talk until Congress stops, and it's time to go home, and no bill has been passed. What reconciliation does is it says you cannot filibuster. Also, you typically have to have a 60-vote majority on certain bills like this, because this is a money-related bill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of money. Reconciliation basically says that you don't have to have that 60-vote majority. which without that, you can't stop it from passing. So if they do indeed declare reconciliation, which it looks like they're going to do, they're certainly threatening it, that stimulus bill will pass. There's no way to stop it. I'm not saying it's good, bad. There's some good things in that bill.
Sure.
And there's some things that that are kind of written in there that if I were writing the bill, I probably wouldn't have written in there. So I don't know, man. It's, that's the scary thing about having the control of the House. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, having total control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency, you can pretty much kind of do what you want.
That's right. And I don't think that's right for either side of the aisle. I really don't.
Yeah.
And regardless of my political affiliation or not, you're not representing the entire nation, because we're not majority of one political party, and that's what really concerns me about that, is the fact that, at this point in time, just like you say, they're going to do what they want,
Right.
whether you like it or not. And it becomes much more of a we work for them than they work for us scenario.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Well, and I agree with that. I think that it's, in politics nationally right now, it's a big issue. I mean, lobbying, for example, has come to the forefront because, and some lobbying is good. I mean, they do, they do a lot of lobbying for small business, which I think we have to have, because if somebody's not out there lobbying for small business,
for us, then
yeah, I mean, they're just going to kind of, public companies are going to rule the world at that point. And so I'm glad you have them. But the problem with lobbying sometimes is when these people get into office, they kind of owe people something.
sure.
And I mean, it's such is life, and I'm a realist, and I do know that there are some things you just you make certain promises, or somebody stands behind you, and legal, not legal, or otherwise, they're going to expect something in return.
Sure.
And so I understand that's a part of life, and we don't live in Candyland,
Right.
and all those sorts of things. But my personal belief is the perfect politician, or the perfect person to run for office, is someone who says, well, I'm speaking for my constituents, regardless of my opinion. I have no opinion, right?
Right.
It doesn't matter what I think personally. It matters what the majority of my constituents think, even if it's locally, even if you're running for parish council and maybe there's something that you don't personally agree with, but 90% of the people in your constituency do. It's your responsibility to vote for them.
For them. That's right.
Right? That's the perfect way. It never works out that way, it seems like, but that would be kind of what you were voted in to do, and that is the purest form of politics, in my opinion.
Sure.
I'd like to see more people like that, though. They kind of look at it as, I don't really get an opinion. My opinion only matters if the vote is tied and I'm the last vote.
Yep.
I get my vote, but it should be based off of the majority always. And I think that's where we've kind of lost track.
That is, in actuality, the premise of elected official is representing a particular group of people, not I am this great person and this is the way we're going to do things, because
I know better than you do.
Because I know better than you do. That's right. And a lot of people stand on that platform when it comes to election season, but they don't necessarily follow that pattern once they win an election.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, it's just going to get more spotlight on it as Congress continues to meet and kind of introduce all these bills, and we adjust to this new, because, regardless of the political side you're on, we have a new regime,
sure.
so to speak, and you've got kind of some people that lean so far left, like a Bernie Sanders and an AOC, and they want certain things. And like we talked about last episode, they can't even agree with the president on, their own president, so to speak, on those things.
How quickly we saw them turn on him.
Yeah, that was fast.
Yep. That's just the way it goes.
You said $2,000, not $1,400. Yeah, I mean, They're going to hold him to the grindstone, man. He's probably like, oh, man, I can't even get along with my own people.
Well, he probably never remembered saying any of it, so it's kind of irrelevant.
Indeed.
I'm sorry, did I just say that?
No, you didn't. You didn't
Whoops.
say nothing. I don't know what you mean by that. So that was interesting, and we'll see how that goes. So what else has been going on? Anything that you want to talk about? Any exciting things going on in your world that are new and different?
Same old story, same old song and dance. Kind of seems like not that every day runs into one another, but I see people I hadn't seen in a little while. Hey man, what you been up to? Work.
Yeah.
That's kind of
what is a good thing.
Absolutely, it is. I'm very blessed and fortunate to have a job that I enjoy going and working in. I'm really excited to see there seems to be a downtick in the coronavirus. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say that the China flu or the China
virus,
the China virus, because we're not supposed to say the China virus. In fact, you can't say China virus.
You can't say China anymore.
You really can't say China anymore. But it seems like there is starting to be a bit of a downtick as far as that goes. Downtick of hospitalizations, deaths. You got the rise of the vaccine for those who are wanting and willing to take it, which is great if that's what you want to do.
Sure.
Which hopefully will also help to compound the taming of the virus itself. And hopefully we can kind of start getting back some of the things that we've missed so much, like trade shows, like live concerts, like back to real sporting events as opposed to cutouts in the stands and weirdness like that. And, I'm looking forward. It's looking like hopefully some things are going to start opening back up, and I'm excited to see it that way,
I agree. And yeah, it's, regardless of what side you are on the shot side, or
sure,
you're going to get the shot, not get the shot. Personally, if it gets us back to business, I hope whoever wants to get it gets it.
Sure.
And whoever doesn't want to get it doesn't get it.
It's not bullied or ostracized.
I certainly don't think we need to get in the business of forcing people to get it.
That's bad business.
Yeah, it's a strange thing that this shot. It's something that I listened to a doctor last night that this guy's a worldwide famous doctor that focuses on this stuff, and he said, sure, if you're 60 or older, you probably will want to get it. Mm-hmm. Will it work for everybody 60 and over? No, probably only about half that it's going to make a difference for. But it could be the difference between life and death in some cases.
Sure.
But he feels like if you're under 60, you don't really need to get it. That's just his opinion. But you can if you want to.
Sure.
And I say if it makes you feel better to get it, go for it. And maybe it will. Maybe it will be the difference for you. I'm fortunate I haven't gotten it yet, knock on wood,
sure,
that I know of, and or I'm asymptomatic, one of the two. But I'm just ready for it all to kind of go to where we can get back to normal. The only thing that scares me is it seems to be kind of mutating and it's figuring it out, just like the flu. The flu, it figures it out. And
it's kind of what viruses do.
Yeah. So will it ever really kind of go away? I don't know. I tried to look and see how long nobody seems to know how long this shot lasts. Even the people that make the shot don't,
it's kind of an impossible thing to know, Jim, because it's so brand new. And everybody, oh no, they've been working on this forever. This is like, well, okay, whatever, dude. The shot is new.
Yeah.
The vaccine is new. It may be a variation of something that's been worked on in laboratories for quite some time. But, okay, then how long does it last? Oh, we don't know.
Yeah, they can't really, no one can really tell you. It could be, months. It could be years. It could be you have to get it once a year like a flu shot. I do know that they're coming out with some, or they're trying to come out with some legislation to where, I saw the other day, you can't even fly within the United States unless you show like a negative test. Whether you think that's good or not, you're entitled to your own opinion. It isn't passed; it isn't a law yet. But these are things I saw coming. I saw travel becoming an issue, and especially on small planes. And I figured there would come a time when you would have a stamp or something, almost like a passport, that says you're not diseased, or you don't have the sickness, or you got the shot, or whatever.
No kung flu for you.
No, that's right. So, so who knows where we're going to go from here? But yes, the numbers are starting to tick down, and it seems like we're getting a little relief there. I say keep ticking down, man. It's just crazy how our world got flipped upside down.
Indeed, indeed.
Time. I don't know. I don't know where we go from here, but good things. You know, we don't have any complaints here with relative to business, and you know, at least in what we do. But there are some out there that have suffered and really still need help. So try to focus on all your people that you think could use some assistance when it comes to business and all those sorts of things.
I've said it before. I said it before any of this nonsense happened, and I'll say it probably until the day that I die. Do as much as you can for local people. Do as much as you can for local businesses, because they're the ones that aren't getting the massive bailouts. They're the ones that, you know, a couple of sales makes a huge difference in a small business compared to, you know, a couple of sales not going to some large public traded company. And that, you know, ultimately they're the ones that, the small businesses are the ones that sponsor your kid's ball team. And they're the ones that are there in a local emergency situation. Like, take, for example, the flood from 2016, the amount of small businesses that were affected by it and those who weren't affected by it, and how they were here for the community, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
And the large traded companies didn't even really know anything was going on down here. I talked to so many people later on in 2016 and even the beginning of 2017 that had no idea anything had happened in South Louisiana, you know, during the Great Flood. And I was showing them pictures and stuff, and they're like, wow, that's crazy. And it must have just been a blip, huh? No, it was like life for us for 6 months was dealing with flood muck, you know, and everything. I can't believe we didn't hear anything about that. Yeah, that's kind of the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, man, those days. And, you know, that was a 1,000-year event at one point. They were, and wow, lived through it. We made it on the other side.
That's
and
right.
Flourished, and then boom, COVID. But that such is life, man. You get thrown curveballs all the time.
That's
you
right.
Sit back, sit down on that curve and knock it out of the park when you.
That's right.
You know, when you know to swing. But well, this has been a good little episode.
Absolutely.
We'll see everyone next week. I'm Jim Chapman, and that is
James-Adam McCants.
we are definitely two bald guys
from the Deep South.
From the Deep South. So we'll see you next time. Thank you very much for listening.
Yes, thank you.